In today's video, we'll see that it's wrong of us to pass by many GTA spots without a deeper thought. Of course, we can't blame ourselves. It'd be weird if we stopped at every building just to play detective and verify whether it by any chance hides something special. Yet it turns out that we miss out on a lot. Rockstar pays close attention to details. See, many GTA locations aren't meant to just fill up the streets, create a feeling of moving around a huge metropolis, or faithfully reference real-life locations, giving us the impression that we're not driving around in Los Santos but in actual Los Angeles. A lot of them are also meant to refer to certain stories, sometimes very creepy ones, which are bound to surprise those who decide to look into them closer. The location at which we'll take a closer look today is the Templar Hotel in GTA 5. The hotel contains elements which undoubtedly point at the fact that it was based off of a real hotel by the name of Cecil Hotel, which hides very dark stories. One of these stories is tied to a water tank on the roof of this hotel. I'm mentioning that because the tank constitutes one of the main pieces of evidence from which we know that the Templar Hotel was indeed influenced by the Cecil Hotel. In any way, it turns out that in the Cecil Hotel, there was at least 11 suicides recorded, with some sources giving even bigger numbers. The first of them apparently happened in 1931, which gave a beginning to a series of sad events. Over time, the hotel obviously gained a rather infamous reputation. It became a place to which you'd come to pull off a quick number with a prostitute or to consume some very suspicious substances, or in the most extreme cases, to end your chapter and say goodbye to the cruel world. And alternatively, it was also a favorite spot for serial killers. For example, Richard Ramirez, who has 14 murders to his name, stayed in the hotel, and perhaps even some of those murders were committed while he was booked there. The Cecil Hotel also became a place of residence of Jack Unterweger, apparently a fan of Mr. Ramirez, who wanted to follow his alleged idol's footsteps and killed at least 3 prostitutes during his stay at the hotel. One of the equally messed up stories this hotel can show off is the one about a 19-year-old woman and her boyfriend. The pair stayed at the Cecil Hotel in 1944. The woman in question, Dorothy Purcell, woke up in the middle of the night with a strong stomachache. It turned out it wasn't any indigestion or an appendix. The woman was pregnant, of which she wasn't aware apparently. The whole situation sounds pretty absurd. Dorothy gave birth to her son in the bathroom. In this whole shock, she panicked and most likely wrongly assessed that the child she gave birth to was dead. As if that weren't enough, Dorothy decided therefore to throw the infant out of the window, which is hard to believe. Even weirder is that this whole situation was apparently entirely slept through by Dorothy's boyfriend, whom she didn't want to wake up, as if giving birth weren't a sufficient reason to break your boyfriend's sleep. It looks somewhat as if the woman deliberately said so her boyfriend isn't suspected of anything, though that's just speculation. There isn't any evidence to support it. Overall, the whole situation looks as if Dorothy simply didn't want a child, hence her weird explanation about thinking her baby was stillborn, and that's why Dorothy did everything she could not to wake up her boyfriend. It's worth mentioning that the birth was unexpected because Dorothy didn't even know she was pregnant. What's the most incredible in all this is that Dorothy eventually was found not guilty by reason of insanity. And as we're already on the topic of defenestration, cool word, ain't it? Defenestration is the act of throwing someone out of a window. Seriously. The story behind how this word was even coined is a treat on its own, but that may be another time. Anyway, the Cecil Hotel offers more in this aspect. This time, the victim, while trying to end their own journey on Earth, accidentally ended someone else's journey while they were at it. Pauline Otten, a 27-year-old woman, had an argument with her husband, who soon left the room in the fervor of discussion. Pauline decided to do the same, only that her way of evacuating was through a window instead of a door. Not only did it end terribly for her, but a random pedestrian got killed too, on top of whom the woman simply fell. And now it's time to explain why the hotel in GTA 5, the Templar Hotel, could not have been added to the game without that iconic water tank. The most famous incident tied to the Cecil Hotel is the death of Elisa Lam. Elisa struggled with an extreme case of bipolar disorder. The illness makes the person function in 2 modes. It's either the mania, which means an elevated mood, endless motivation and energy, and the sense of being able to do anything, or it's depression, the sense of hopelessness, lack of motivation, sadness, and so on. Not every instance is extreme, and the spectrum of symptoms is pretty wide. So don't nitpick my definition too much, please. In our case, we don't really need to know all the details anyway. In either case, Elisa Lam was once recorded in a hotel corridor. From the recording, it's not hard to conclude that she imagined that someone was trying to catch her. For a while, it even looks as if she was struggling with air, as if she tried to grab something. And two main thoughts come to mind. The first one is ghosts. The second is Mrs. Lam's hallucination. I personally don't believe the first option, but I'll leave the interpretation of that event to each one of you individually. I'll only note that the hallucination theory is supported by the words of her sister, who reported that she had a history of not taking her medication. What's the creepiest in all this is that sometime later, her naked body was discovered inside of a water tank on the roof. Everything happened in a pretty gross manner. See, the tank was checked because the hotel staff had received complaints about blackish and oddly tasting water. Madness. To drink tea with water in which a corpse swam, or even to take a shower with such water, is a disaster. Lifelong trauma, not to mention the potential health issues. As to the situation itself, it was not exactly determined why and how Elisa got herself into the tank or even on the roof due to the lack of appropriate footage. The access to those places was not that easy. The theory that makes the most sense is that Elisa got onto the fire escape through a window and followed them up onto the roof. Her getting into the tank remains weird though. Even the workers needed a ladder to take a look at the water. For the record, Elisa was naked when she was found. It was speculated that Elisa took off her clothes in order to get rid of additional weight, which was supposed to aid her efforts to get out of the tank. As to why she entered the tank, the most likely theory appears to be the one that Elisa tried to hide from her imaginary oppressor in the tank. Although, how exactly she managed to get into the water tank is still uncertain. It could have been that Elisa saw that she could get back out of the tank while she was getting into it. But over time, the water got used up by the residents of the hotel, leaving her trapped inside, which led to her death. There were also people who claimed that the camera footage was tampered with before releasing in order to hide the identity of the real oppressor. In my opinion though, looking at all those unusual gestures of Elisa, it seems clear to me that the situation was a result of her mental disorders. The confirmation that the GTA developers paid close attention to that spot is the case of Leonora Johnson. The story of the in-game hotel has a lot to do with the tragic story of Leonora. Leonora Johnson was a woman whom all the fans of creepy GTA stories know very well, I think. Leonora was brutally murdered in GTA 5's lore. A player can discover the details of her death by collecting all the scraps of the letter written by the murderer, a movie director, Peter Dreyfuss. Only after putting together the entire letter is it possible to confront him and find out the truth about the murder. The character of Leonora Johnson was most likely inspired by the story of a young woman of a nickname Black Dahlia. The real name of the woman was Elizabeth Short. She was brutally murdered and mutilated in 1947, just like Leonora Johnson. The rumor has it that a few hours before her disappearance, she bought a drink in the Cecil's bar itself. It's not a confirmed fact, just a rumor. Yet, there's a big chance that it's a city legend by which the game developers got inspired while creating the fictional story of Leonora Johnson. There are many places in GTA that could be discussed in this way, so if you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comment. Thank you for today. Thanks to the patrons for the support. Take care and see you soon.